Breaking Dawn by Stephanie Meyer. Book 1, Bella. Chapter 2, Long Nights. I miss you already. I don't need to leave. I can stay. It was quiet for a long moment, just the thud of my heart hammering, and the broken rhythm of our ragged breathing, and the whisper of our lips moving in synchronization. Sometimes it was so easy to forget that I was kissing a vampire. Not because he seemed ordinary or human. I could never for a second forget that I was holding something more angel than man in my arms. Just because he made it seem like nothing at all to have his lips against my lips, my face, my throat. He claimed that it was long past the temptation my blood used to be for him, that the idea of losing me had cured him of any desire for it. But I knew the smell of my blood still caused him pain, still burned his throat like he was inhaling flames. I opened my eyes and found his open too, staring at my face. It made no sense when he looked at me that way, like I was the prize rather than the outrageously lucky winner. Our gazes locked for a moment. His golden eyes were so deep that I imagined I could see all the way into his soul. It seemed silly that this fact, the existence of his soul, had ever been in question. Even if he was a vampire, he had the most beautiful soul, more beautiful than his brilliant mind or his incomparable face or his glorious body. He looked back at me as if he could see my soul too, and as if he liked what he saw. He couldn't see into my mind though, but the way he saw into everyone else's. Who knew why? Some strange glitch in my brain that made it immune to all the extraordinary and frightening things some immortals could do. Only my mind was immune. My body was still subject to vampires with abilities that worked in ways other than Edward's. But I was seriously grateful to whatever malfunction it was that kept my thoughts a secret. It was just too embarrassing to consider the alternative. I pulled his face to mine again. "Definitely staying," he murmured a moment later. No, it's your bachelor party. You have to go." I said the words, but the fingers of my right hand locked into his bronze hair. My left finger pressed tighter against the small of his back. His cool hand stroked my face. Bachelor parties are designed for those who are sad to see the passing of their single days. I couldn't be more eager to have mine behind me. So there's really no point. True. I breathed against the winter-cold skin of his throat. This was pretty close to my happy place. Charlie slept obliviously in his room, which was almost as good as being alone. We were curled up on my small bed, intertwined as much as it was possible, considering the thick Afghan I was swathed in like a cocoon. I hated the necessity of the blanket, but it sort of ruined the romance when my teeth started chattering. Charlie would notice if I turned the heat on in August. At least if I had to be bundled up, Edward's shirt was on the floor. I never got over the shock of how perfect his body was, white, cool, and polished as marble. I ran my hand down his stone chest now, tracing across the flat planes of his stomach, just marvelling. A slight shudder rippled through him, and his mouth found mine again. Carefully I let the tip of my tongue press against his glass-smooth lip, and he sighed. His sweet breath washed, cold and delicious, over my face. He started to pull away. That was his automatic response whenever he decided things had gone too far, his reflex reaction whenever he most wanted to keep going. Edward had spent most of his life rejecting any kind of physical gratification. I knew it was terrifying to him to try and change those habits now. "Wait," I said, gripping his shoulders and hugging myself close to him. I kicked one leg free and wrapped it round his waist. "Practice makes perfect," he chuckled. "Well, we should be fairly close to perfection by this point then, shouldn't we? Have you slept at all in the last month?" "This is a dress rehearsal," I reminded him, "and we've only practised certain scenes. It's no time for playing safe." I thought he would laugh, but he didn't answer, and his body was motionless with sudden stress. The gold in his eyes seemed to harden from a liquid to a solid. I thought over my words, realised what he would have heard in them. "Bella," he whispered. "Don't start this again," I said. "A deal's a deal." "I don't know. It's too hard to concentrate when you're with me like this. I can't think straight. I won't be able to control myself. You'll get hurt." "I'll be fine." "Bella?" "Shh." I pressed my lips to his to stop his panic attack. I'd heard it before. He wasn't getting out of this deal. Not after insisting on marrying him first. He kissed me back for a moment, but I could tell he wasn't as into it as before. Worrying, always worrying. How different it would be when he didn't need to worry about me anymore. What would he do with all his free time? He'd have to get a new hobby. "How are your feet?" he asked. Knowing he didn't mean that literally, I answered, "Toasty warm." "Really?" "No second thoughts?" "It's not too late to change your mind. Are you trying to ditch me? He chuckled. Just making sure. I don't want you to do anything I'm not sure about. I'm sure about you. The rest I can live through. He hesitated, and I wanted to put my foot in his mouth again. Can you? He asked quietly. I don't mean the wedding, which I'm positive you will survive, despite your qualms. But afterward, what about with Renee? What about Charlie? I sighed. I'll miss them. Worse, that they'll miss me, but I don't want to give them any fuel. Angela, and Ben, and Jessica, and Mike. I miss my friends too, I smiled in the darkness, especially Mike. Oh, Mike, how will I go on? He growled. I laughed, but then it was serious. Edward, we've been through this, and through this. I know it will be hard, but this is what I want. I want you, and I want you forever. One lifetime is simply not enough for me. Frozen forever 18, he whispered. Every woman's dream come true, I teased. Never changing, never moving forward. What does that mean? He answered slowly. Do you remember what we told Charlie when we were getting married? And he thought you were pregnant. And he thought about shooting you, I guessed. With a laugh. Admit it for 1 second. He honestly considered it. He didn't answer. What, Edward? I wish that he'd been right. Gah! I gasped. More than there was some way he could have been. That we had any kind of potential. I hate taking that away from you. It took me a minute. I know what I'm doing. How could you do that? How could you know that, Bella? Look at my mother. Look at my sister. It's not as easy as a sacrifice as you imagine. Esme and Rosa I get by just fine. If it's just a problem later, we can do what Esme did. We'll adopt. He sighed and his voice was fierce. It's not right. I don't want you to make any sacrifices for me. I want to give you things, I'll take them away from you. I don't want to steal your future. If I were human. I put his hand over my hand over his lips. You are my future. Now stop. No moping or I'm calling your brothers to come and get you. Maybe you need a bachelor party. I'm sorry, I am moping, aren't I? Must be the nerves. Are your feet cold? Not in that sense. I've been waiting a century to marry you, Miss Swan. The wedding ceremony is the one thing I can't wait. He broke off mid-thought. Oh, for the love of all that's holy. What's wrong? He gritted his teeth. You don't have to call my brothers. Apparently Emmett and Jasper are not going to let me bow out tonight. I clutched him closer for 1 second, and then released him. I didn't have a prayer of winning a tug-of-war with Emmett. Have fun.